name is Samantha. My name is Samantha Legier. I'm a third-year PhD candidate at the University of Waterloo, and today I will be presenting on my working thesis proposal entitled Beyond Just Modes, a critical examination into the all ages and abilities promises of complete streets through the capability approach. Go to the next slide. Great. So just to give a little bit of background, alongside working on my PhD, I'm also a practicing transportation planner. And in the last couple of years, we've seen a shift in how we approach transportation master plans to be more multimodal. But even more recently, we've also seen a shift where RFPs coming out are looking to center equity throughout the entirety of the plan. And so the question then becomes if the industry is ready to respond. So to give a bit of background, currently transportation practice has been focused on complete streets planning, where most of our efforts are focused on mode-based equity, which includes adequate space for all motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, and transit. Yet the promises of complete streets stretch far beyond just modes. Complete streets are accepted in practice as the means to achieve transportation equity through their embedded promise of all ages and abilities, and also have been equated to livable and sustainable cities. And so with these lofty promises come a heavy responsibility. Despite their touted benefits, complete streets have been noted to have many concurrent fallouts that specifically impact mobility justice. And when we equate good streets to good cities, it is critical that we understand how these good streets contribute to and can potentially inhibit our goals of mobility justice. To understand this more, we need to dive into the equity promises of complete streets, which are often wrapped up in the term all ages and abilities. There is a lack of consensus on this term and how to directly define it, but that does not inhibit its use, and it is still the most common linguistic tool in addressing equity and accessibility in transportation planning. To help us scope this term a little more, we can look to NACTO, which has all ages and abilities categorized into 9 types. This includes age-based types such as children and seniors, but also more systemically determined types of ability, including women, low-income populations, people with disabilities, and people of color. However, how we apply all ages and abilities limits the reach of these categories. Sorry, Jasmine, could you just go back one slide? Thank you so much. Especially those that are systemically determinate. And since all ages abilities is typically applied at the stage of when we're upgrading active transportation infrastructure and facilities, such as route connectivity and design guidance, the focus in practice tends to lean on age and physical abilities rather than those that are societally driven. This leads to a broken link or a broken chain between the way we talk about all ages and abilities and the way that we apply it. You can go to the next slide now, thanks. This leads to a critical issue when translating mobility justice into transportation planning practice. Literature within the politics of mobility helps to address this gap, acknowledging that there are societal structures, norms, and politics that form our conceptions of mobility and the meanings that we tie to different modes. Our mode choices are entangled into these conceptions and relate to far more than just infrastructure. To put it simply, this translates to an understanding that our mobility options are not just about the sidewalk or bike lane availability. And if you can just click the slide for me, please. But also translate to a series of invisible barriers that affect certain different populations. The fallouts of complete street planning that do not engage with this critical line of thinking is evident, and we see it in the ways that complete streets fall short of just outcomes today. For example, often in aligning to efforts of reduced urban blight or increased land value in tourism, the redesigns of our streets are wound up in the co-option of public space driven by capitalistic values and neoliberal politics. This then results in unjust outcomes on our streets that we see even in complete street planning, and a difference in how mobility is experienced and embodied that is present regardless of the infrastructure conditions. So to put it simply, all ages and abilities, unfortunately, right now does not equate mobility justice. And the aim of this proposal is to uncover how all ages and abilities can be reimagined to better achieve mobility justice in modern transportation planning practice through critically engaging with complete streets, the politics of mobilities, and the theories of mobility and social justice. And to do so, I'm introducing the capability approach. So the capability approach is a theory of social justice that essentially does not focus on what people ought to be able to do, but instead focuses on what people can do in the existing unjust societies of today. It recognizes advantage as an indicator and inhibitor as to what is accessible, and is fundamentally situated in the power structures of today's society. There's been some scholarship on the capability approach being applied to planning theory, but less has focused on its specific application to transportation and mobility planning. And the hope of this work is to recenter the ideals of all ages and abilities through shifting the focus from planning for sustainable transportation. And you can click the slide again, sorry. This is a little bit of an animation. Focusing on planning for sustainable transportation to planning for sustainable transportation capabilities. You can click the slide again. And that would translate from looking at mode-focused solutions to person-focused solutions. That doesn't just think about where there are bike lanes, but who are actually on the bikes, who are actually using the sidewalks, etc. So the focus of this overall proposal would be moving the capability approach, which is a theoretical framework, into a practical framework that could actually be used in transportation master planning. This would aim to flip the structure that the capabilities are the foundation and the transportation master plans respond to the emerging ask for people-centered plans. To do so, I'd be looking at interviews with decision makers, planners, and everyday people on the street, as well as my own auto-ethnographic work, being a practicing planner in the field. And you can click the slide again. So why does this all matter? And why is this relevant and important work to be done? The capability approach lens to mobility would provide a theoretical reframing of mobility that could restructure how we approach transportation planning. Flipping the structure would move all ages and abilities from being a final consideration that we typically bring into conversation at the design guidance phase to being the foundation of how we conceive, structure, and lay out our transportation master plans. Moreover, this matters because transportation planning matters. Mobility justice is not just about equating access to mobility, but also the entrenched benefits of mobility, such as increased opportunity, both to better jobs or housing, social mobility, and well-being. Overall, my hope of this project is to reflect a timely exploration of the relationship between the politics of mobility and practical transportation planning, and the opportunity to further push practical equity and justice tools of complete streets planning, such as all ages and abilities, to better align to the pillars of mobility justice. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your questions.